reacting to a Eagles loss. I'm not used to this. I'm very uncomfortable. Wow, it's been a while since we had to sit here and pick apart some madness. But here's where we are at. At 215-592-9494, you could jump in and share your thoughts. We are going to play the blame game today. And I want to know out there, what is the number one reason why the Eagles fell in Washington? Because I've heard over the last 24 hours, many of you debate whether it was between Kenny Pickett or the defense. And while we'll definitely get into those two pieces of the pie, number one is Devonte Smith. Devonte Smith had the ball in his hands and dropped it. That's the game. It would have been signed and delivered. It would have been another W, and it was a massive, massive hit for this team fighting for the number one seed, which was massively important. Devonte, I love you. We all love you. I'm still going to go to Devonte 1,000 times in a row moving forward if I need to with the game on the line. I trust him long term, but that doesn't remove the fact that in this game against the Commanders, Devonte was the biggest problem. Just like when the Falcons game occurred, it was on Saquon. Now, you saw how Saquon has answered that adversity by being in the MVP conversation as a running back, which is rare. So he's been playing like his hair's on fire ever since. I expect Devonte to do the same thing, but I just don't want to sugarcoat it. We don't have to overcomplicate it. Devonte Smith lost you the football game on Sunday, and for some reason, it's not being talked about enough. Now, I am going to, unfortunately, have you all sit through the pain and agony of listening to this drop. Now, Merrill Reese always does a phenomenal job, but the pain of the drop really hits your heartstrings. Here's Merrill Reese on the call.
In the gun, Pickett. He puts Dotson in motion. Pickett is back. He's looking. He is firing. Juggled and dropped by Devonte Smith. Devonte Smith had it in his hands, maybe a touchdown, and he dropped it.
It just can't happen. It can't happen. There's this mentality when you have your backup in, you need to have a sense of urgency. You need to have a different level of focus. You need to be prepared to step up for said backup quarterback or for said backup anybody, whether it's in hockey, the backup goalie. There tends to be this surge that goes down when you know you got to give a little extra. We got to have their back. Tough position for Kenny Pickett to come in. He put the ball in an area for a superstar playmaker to make a play. That's the goal from Kenny Pickett. That's the plan. Put it in the area of AJ and let him go win his matchups. Put it in the area for Saquon to make an impressive play. Put it in the hands of your skill position guys when we air out the football. And then it's on those skill position players to rise to the occasion for said backup. And Devonte, unfortunately, let it slip. And while it was uncharacteristic, and I don't expect to see it very often, that was insanely devastating. And it was the reason why you lost that football game. I collapsed on my couch. I'm sitting there and I'm going, hey, we got to win. I felt it in my bones the second the ball was in the air on the way to Devonte. I remember looking around at my wife and my daughter smiling. I'm like, yeah, we snuck out of this, survive in advance. That's the goal when Jalen goes down 11 plays into the game. It's all about surviving and advancing, and let's see how we can go through the next week with Jalen in concussion protocol, and let's see if we can somehow eke out a number 1 seed and see what happens with the Lions and the Vikings. Those were the emotions that were flowing through my bone marrow. And then with the snap of the fingers, I'm collapsing to the ground, devastated, crying. Come on, Devontae, what are we doing? So I can't shake it. Devonte Smith is the reason why the Eagles lost. And I'm curious out there, what is the number 1 reason why they lost in your eyes? 215-592-9494. I want you guys to take a listen to Devonte Smith after the game. He was asked about it, obviously, and this was his response.
I just dropped the ball. I ain't gonna beat myself up over it. It's life, part of the game. I made all the tough catches there, and then the easy one I had, I dropped. It is what it is. Trust the game. Ain't nobody else's fault but mine.
You were able to move on from this and obviously not let it weigh down on your shoulders too much.
That game over with. Ain't nothing I can do about it now.
Was it one of those where you just looked it in, or you?
I just dropped the ball. Ain't no teaching on it. Just catch the ball. It's simple.
Do you like that in that moment they go to you?
Yeah, for sure. I was calling for it, and when they put it in my hands, I got to make the damn play.
Now, I love Devontae's answer. I think he handled it as well as you can after the game. There were some people that reached out to me that asked my opinion on that, on his tone, and, did it sound like he accepted that failure? Like, what? Yeah, of course. Yes. I mean, it's Devontae. I would feel different if this was someone who had a drop every week, and then they weren't really taking it to heart, and they weren't putting in the work the right way, or they just couldn't execute for so long and so many weeks in a row of failing, and it's like, whatever, I'll just put it behind me. No, you can. You got to realize that that is unacceptable, and you have to change some variation of your details needs to be looked at because it's a common trend. But it's not Jalen Reagor. Okay? It's not J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, where I could run through 9 or 10 different examples in 4 straight games of them missing out on a big-time play. Devontae is such a skilled guy. I don't need him to worry about this because you can throw him 1,000 passes moving forward, and I feel he will catch 1,000 of them. So it's as if you're the best corner in the league. Do you think Quinyon Mitchell is going to cry about getting beat once by Terry McLaurin, or does he just lock in the next time he gets a chance to line up? Of course. The best corners, they erase it. They eliminate it. They get it away from, the feelings within seconds, and they hit the refresh button. That's how Devontae should handle it. So I like his approach, and he's going to be fine long term. That doesn't hide the fact that Devonte Smith lost them the football game. 215-592-9494. Let's go to the phones and get your reaction on this Christmas Eve, all right? Let's go to Chris in Havertown. What's happening, Chris?
Hello.
What's going on?
I think it's because Jalen Hurts got injured.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, I do agree, and I appreciate the phone call. I do agree that it has to do with Jalen getting injured for sure, and the game would have been different if that wasn't the case. If Jalen Hurts played that game, I don't think the Eagles lose. I think the defense is on the field a different amount of time. You're not going 3 and out. And I don't think Kenny Pickett played bad. And I'll get into the Kenny Pickett angle shortly here. I think he put the team in a position to win, and that's the role of a backup quarterback. The whole entire 4 quarters has a different identity with the presence, the calmness, the poise of Jalen Hurts. But once that happened, you have a dose of reality that you need to find a way to win that game. So once they did have to result at looking at Kenny Pickett, what do you do from there? What do you do from there? And you have to step up. I don't think the defense did enough, even though they had 5 turnovers. I think Kenny Pickett did enough, even though there was some ugliness in there. But at the end of the day, Devonte Smith had so much space in front of him. He had the first down. And what do we say about Jalen all the time? He finds a way, right? The fourth quarter, big drive. They run the clock out. They keep the football in the hands of their own possession. And they milk the clock down 6, 7, 8 minutes where the other team is hungry trying to get the football back to give their offense a chance. But they can't. And right then and there, I saw a situation where Devonte Smith had the chance to do that with the backup quarterback. If Jalen makes that play, we go, Jalen, just making things happen on that drive. Jalen, perfect. We like Devonte. I like Devonte. I'm a big fan of Devonte Smith. But sometimes there's people in your life that you love that make a mistake. Doesn't mean you don't love them any less. It's just hey, that can't happen again. Hey, I love you, but we'll move forward past this. But, recognize that you screwed up. We need to realize, even though we love Devonte, that it's okay to blame him when he is a part of the problem. And in that game, he was. At the very end, it's the clutch gene. Got to focus. And he normally has the clutch gene. That's why this is weird. It's awkward. I'd be lying if I told you sitting here right now this is a comfortable thing to talk about. Of course not. He's the reason why you win a lot of games. For the same reason I'm putting blame on him today, the complete opposite is what I normally say about his ability and his greatness. So it's strange. It's like if Joel Embiid drops 50 points in 8 straight games, and then on one night he shoots 1 for 12, and you fail and lose. And it may happen to be that you lost that game because Joel didn't have it. That doesn't make me not appreciate Embiid any less. But this one falls on the wide receiver. Let's go to Don in Old City. What's happening, Don?
Hey, what's going on, buddy?
What's happening?
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed about the game. He should have caught that ball.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, I know.
No doubt about it.
He does so many times. I'm telling you, Don, I'm not even making this up. I promise you, if he has 1,000 of those, I don't think he catches 999. I think he catches 1,000. That's why it's so painful.
Yeah, and the thing about it is you want to show your backup quarterback, that his value, his worth. I mean, you should have did that even for your backup, and that just makes everybody all around feel bad. Your backup quarterback, he should feel bad. He should be home banging his head against the wall.
Who, Devontae or Kenny Pickett? Devontae or
no, not Pickett.
Oh,
Pickett did pretty good.
I thought so too.
The ball was in his hands, so Pickett had nothing. Pickett did his job.
I agree with that. Yeah, Don, I agree with that. So let me ask you this, though, in regards to moving forward. I'm assuming you're like the rest of us and not really a big panic moving forward because of this loss, or does this change maybe some feelings about the defense? Are they leaking oil? Is there any sort of negative takeaway, long-term view for you, Don?
I do have a takeaway from that defense because even though he missed the ball, they should not have let them get that touchdown with 10 seconds left in the game. That should have never happened.
Agreed. And it seems to always happen. Thanks, Don. I appreciate it. It seems to always happen in this regard. Whenever it gets close and the game's a one-possession game with maybe 1 minute to go, as great as Vic Fangio has done, it always gets hairy, doesn't it? Against the Jags, what was the difference? Nakobe Dean with an interception when Trevor Lawrence didn't throw a good ball. So you had a phenomenal play out of your linebacker to seal the deal. Kudos to you. Atlanta, we know the story. Here, again, sweating it out. I would like for them to be a little bit more strategic later in these games where we don't have to sweat as much as we are sweating. It always seems like you're going to put yourself in a spot mentally to prepare for it to be inside the 10-yard line with 7 to go. And then it comes down to a play or two. Can you have a Jalen Mills versus Julio Jones against the Falcons the year they won the Super Bowl in the end zone to get a stop? But can't we get a stop by midfield? Can't we get a stop a little earlier than that instead of it being inside the 10? Can it be at the 30, at the 35 or something? Please? I beg of you? Special teams didn't help. The kickoff game, the return game, that was miserable too. It was a game to me that was very out of the ordinary. I don't have long-term worry about this team. I don't. If you look at all the details that transpired, GJ gets 2 flags, and one of them he gets punched in the face, and he gets hit with the flag. The Jalen Carter penalty was a joke. There was a lot of weirdness involved. Then you had the Josh Sweat ankle. You had the Jordan Davis injury. There was a lot happening. You had 12 men on the field. Darius Slay. How many times does that happen with this group? Not many. That's why they won 10 games in a row. And it's hard to win 10 games in a row. This falls more in the category of you're due more than anything else. And think about what the you're due game was. A super insane, uncharacteristic drop out of Devonte Smith, weird ejections, and a Jalen Hurts, which, we're getting to this at 18 minutes into the show here, but a Jalen Hurts getting hit in the head, concussed, and leaves the game. That's how talented this group is when they are active and healthy. So I'm good long-term thinking, but as we play the blame game here on Christmas Eve, which should be a jolly day, of course the loss happens on such a spirited holiday week. The number one blame is the wide receiver. It's Skinny Batman. It's number 6. It sucks, but it's the truth. We don't run away from the truth here. 215-592-9494 as we play the blame game today on this Christmas Eve. How ironic. I just feel Devonte Smith lost you the game. We can nitpick, well, this happened in the first quarter, and that happened in the second quarter, and this happened in the third quarter, and this and that. But games have weird flows. When I was playing college hockey, one of the things my coach told me, because I always thought about, I got to play a perfect game. I was a stay-at-home defenseman. I got to make crisp passes. I got to make tape-to-tape passes. I got to make sure my structure in the D zone is good, and I need to make sure it's that way every single time. And I remember during a film session, he looks at me and goes, Brodes, listen, you are going to make mistakes. You are going to have problems. There are going to be times where, your pass isn't as crisp as you would like it. But when it's the third period with 3 minutes to go, you got to lock in differently. So if in the first period there's a bad turnover, it's a game of mistakes. That's fine. But there are certain times of the game where the focus needs to be detailed and the kinks have to be ironed out, and it's winning time. And I think that message applies perfectly to Devontae here. And this game. Kenny Pickett may have turned the ball over early on. Kenny Pickett may have missed somebody in the second quarter. All of that transpired. Poor special teams. When it's the fourth quarter with a couple minutes to go, you got to have it. You have to have it. Devonte Smith is why the Eagles lost. What is the number one reason why the Eagles lost in your eyes? 215-592-9494. We are going to get back to the phones in a second here. I do want to give you, though, this point of the game where I thought Nick Sirianni was wrongfully getting criticized, especially throughout Monday's heavy reaction. And I heard it a bunch of different times from different hosts and from some callers as well. And if you remember, with about 3 minutes and 48 seconds to go, Jake Elliott hits the field goal to go up 2. The Eagles were down 1 at the time. He drains it for 50 yards. And he hasn't hit a 50-yarder all year. And he drains it. Nice, you're up 2. Then with 1:58 to go, Nick Sirianni elects to kick a 40-yard field goal to go up 5. And the criticism I heard was he needs to go for it on 4th. Because a 5-point game doesn't move the needle for them. Listen here. I believe Nick Sirianni made the right call. What's the strength of this team? What's the strength of this team, especially when Jalen Hurts is injured? The defense. I am not giving that quarterback and the Commanders a chance to only need a field goal to win. Because if Kenny Pickett and the offense failed, I don't like only being up 2. I think that's putting your team in a rough position. The job of the coach is based off of circumstances. Put your team in the best position possible to win the football game. Kicking the field goal and asking your elite best defense in the league to stop them from going all the way and scoring a touchdown, forcing the Commanders to have to score a touchdown. That's the right move before seeing the actual result. Shame on the defense for getting carved up the way that they did. Shame on the special teams for giving the Commanders an opportunity to even operate from their starting point. That's some things that need to be cleaned up big time on the special teams unit. But to act as if Nick Sirianni was brain dead or made a brutal call because he didn't go for it and he decided to force the Commanders to have to go the distance, that's the right call with your backup quarterback in and your defense being your bread and butter. It's the identity of your team. It's the way Vic Fangio has kind of created this team's life. Is the defense being unbelievable and creating chaos and causing havoc. Backup quarterback, 5-point game, make it happen, 2 minutes to go. Let's go win a football game with the defense after DeVonta already costed you with a major drop. That's the right mentality, and unfortunately, he was not rewarded by his team for making the right decision, because that can happen. We do this in baseball all the time. Oh, I can't believe Topper went to Hoffman. Well, what? Hoffman hasn't allowed an earned run in 9 straight appearances. It's not a bad decision to go to Hoffman. Hoffman failed Topper. The defense in Vic Fangio failed Nick when he decided to kick that field goal with 2 minutes to go. I liked the call. His team didn't reward him. 215-592-9494. Back to the phones we go. Let's go to Eric in South Philly. What's up? What's up, Eric? Yo, Eric. All right, we'll put him on hold. We'll go to Paul. What's going on, Paul?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good, man. How are you?
We're good. Hey, I'm gonna tell you the reason that I feel as though they lost that game, and that was
okay.
100% coaching.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you why.
Sure.
Sirianni thinks he's always the smartest man in the room. He likes to get cute, and you know what they said? Oh, Kenny Pickett this, Kenny Pickett that, DeVonta. It all starts coaching. It all starts in the practice. You never thought about, hey, what if Jalen goes down? What are we going to do on the 4th and 1? We got to have a scheme. We got to have a strategy. But you kind of keep going back to the well the same time over and over and again, and you got burned on it. And, I used an example earlier about you look at Belichick versus Pete Carroll in the Super Bowl. You got Marshawn Lynch on the 1-yard line. What do? You run Marshawn 4 times, you win the Super Bowl. You know what? I'm going to be smarter than Bill Belichick. I'm going to be cute and throw a pass. Belichick practiced it. You lost the game. And that's what I think Sirianni and the coaching staff is doing. And, that's just where they are.
Yeah, and listen, Paul, I wasn't a Sirianni guy, and then he won me over a little bit, so I fall into the camp of I like what Nick Sirianni has blossomed into this year after facing all that adversity early. But I don't know. I mean, you can only do so much. So are you saying in practice that Jalen Hurts should be getting less reps and they should give Kenny Pickett more reps during a season when they're winning 10 games, and now you're taking away from your number ones throughout a practice week? Is that what they should do instead of what they have been doing?
you got to be prepared for that number 2 guy to become that number 1 guy on any given day. And, the way the season is, the way guys get banged up, I think what you need to do is to turn around and, maybe you need to start giving one of these guys, start giving Kenny Pickett, a little bit more, some more reps, having him kind of, maybe relax a little bit more because these guys are getting banged up. It's a long season. So,
now let me ask you this, because you brought up Bill Belichick. So I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit, and I don't know the answer to this, but do you think Tom Brady in practice was getting less practice reps? So let's say Jimmy Garoppolo or whoever his backup was during a season where they're winning 10 games through 12 weeks and they have a Super Bowl run ahead of them. Do you think Tom Brady's doing less in practice just in case he ever gets injured and then the backup has to come in?
In all honesty, yeah.
You do?
I think Belichick. I think Belichick was always scheming, always having somebody ready because it all started with Drew Bledsoe going down.
Yeah, but do you think Drew Bledsoe was not taking first? Do you think Tom Brady was taking first reps, first snaps, and all that in practice just in case Drew got hurt? Because the answer's no.
I agree 100%. But my point is, I think it's, not about 100% the reps, but it's 100% about, I just don't like Sirianni's, play calling, his decisions.
But what if it's Kellen Moore?
I agree. I think it's both. I think Sirianni breeds a little bit of arrogance in terms of, hey, you know what? This is what we're going to do, and this is what we can do. And it's kind of like, you know what? You just scored X number of points. Your top guy goes down. We need to slow the process a little bit. And they kind of didn't do that. And, I do want to jump to a quick another point is somebody brought up earlier with the officiating. I don't know where officiating is right now, but, when you grab the other guy, when the offensive guy grabs the defensive guy's jersey and then the defensive guy gets, the pass interference, I don't even know what pass interference is anymore. And then the other part about that false start, I agree 100%. But I heard them say that you now have this, delay at the end. No, there's no such thing as a delay. It's 0, the ball's not snapped, or the guy moves. There is no in between, and that's an officiating nightmare.
Officiating's brutal, Paul. It really is. And appreciate the phone call. Happy holidays to you and your loved ones for sure. That was a little too harsh on the Sirianni front. Do I think Sirianni did a perfect game? No. I think he was thrown off guard mid-game, as most coaches would be when you practice all week with 11 snaps of your starter, and then he goes down, and then on the fly you have to kind of adjust. I don't think the Eagles did anything wrong to not have Kenny Pickett prepared for whenever he gets in there. I think he did an admirable job based off of what his skill set is. Look, they should have won the game. I mean, they should have won the game. Devonte Smith lost them the game. They should have won the game. The coaching staff did enough, while it's all said and done, did enough to win the game offensively. Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni did enough to win the game, and that's all you can ask for on the fly mid-game, when all week long you didn't prepare for Kenny Pickett to be the number 1. And, fair or unfair, Kenny Pickett got hurt. So we were watching not 100% Kenny Pickett. We were watching a dude playing at 70%, 75% ribs. He got the one play where Alcantara screwed up on the blind side of blocking, and here comes a strip sack, and the ball's coming loose, and he was shaking out his throwing arm. So he had the throwing arm issue. He had the ribs all banged up too, and he was still out there. I thought the coaching staff, I don't know if they did everything perfectly with the run game, and, you want to talk about shotgun and this and that. It wasn't perfect, but it was never going to be perfect. I thought Kenny Pickett did his job. People act as if he was going to step on the field and play perfect. Let me tell you something. What did we hear from the Jalen Hurts stands throughout the first few weeks? It's a new offense. It takes a while to mold. It takes a while to get together on the same page. And I believe that. I don't think that's crazy. And that's a number 1 top quarterback, franchise quarterback, who gets all the snaps with the number 1s and plays every game. Kenny Pickett has been on the bench for 16 weeks, was benched last season. So essentially, Kenny Pickett hasn't played in a year. a real football game in a year, and he doesn't get any snaps with the first team, and the expectation is for him to go out there and not skip a beat? He played as well as someone going through what I just mentioned, going through, can play. I think he played as well as you can ask someone who hasn't played a football game in a year and hasn't been prepared to play with these guys all year and get thrown into the fire without a practice week, and by the way, got hurt in the game. I actually think he did okay. He did enough to win the game. You lost because Devonte Smith dropped the football. He won you the game with the throw. The reason why you lost was Devonte.